There we go. This is, I forget the guy's name, this senator here, having a conversation with this woman is a doctor, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since you bring it up, why don't we just start there? Dr. Verma, I wasn't sure I understood your answer to Senator Moody a moment ago. Do you think that men can get pregnant?
I hesitated there because I wasn't sure where the conversation was going or what the goal was. I mean, I do take care of patients with different identities. I take care of many women. I take care of people with different identities. And so that's where I paused. I think, I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Well, the goal is just the truth. So can men get pregnant?
Again, the reason I paused there is I'm not really sure what the goal of the question is.
The goal is just to establish a biological reality. You just said a moment ago that science and evidence should control, not politics. Absolutely. So let's just test that proposition. Can men get pregnant?
I take care of people with many identities, but
can men get pregnant?
I take care of many women that can get pregnant. I do take care of people that don't identify as women. That
can men get pregnant?
Again, as I'm saying,
what you're looking at here is this is they're talking past each other. Well, you would be right about that. They are, but you're looking at a conflict here. You're looking at empirical reality smashing headlong into emotionalism. So she doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. She still firmly believes that identity is something that's malleable. Like gender identity in particular is malleable. So she will not come out of her mouth. Like she literally cannot say men cannot get pregnant. She literally cannot do that, because to do so would, first of all, she would lose market share in whatever, wokesy, peer group she happens to be a part of, right? But not only that, she would have to confront the fact that there is an objective definition of male and female. She would have to, but we've entertained for so long. We have coddled, we have pandered to the female narrative of the female experience being the correct experience. Well, what is that all about? That is all about a collective, or it's communitarianism. It's about feels. It's about when women want to affect change in society, they ostracize, they cancel, they push you out of the group, just like they would do with like little girls when they have a group of little best friends. The worst thing that can happen to a little girl is to be kicked out of the peer group, to be an outcast. And women take that into the larger scale, into the meta scale. And so we have cancel culture as a result of that. Men, on the other hand, punish. Men live in hierarchies. Men develop things on empirical, objective hierarchies. So you've got Senator Hawley talking to Dr. Verma here and trying to get an empirical answer, trying to force her to use the language of empiricism that she knows she can't say. She's basically filibustering. She's trying to run out of her time so she doesn't have to answer that question.
Let me just remind you, you testified to a moment ago. Science and evidence should control, not politics. So can men get pregnant? You're a doctor, I think.
Science and evidence should guide medicine.
Do science and evidence tell us that men can get pregnant? Biological men, can they get pregnant?
I also think yes/no questions like this are a political tool.
No, yes/no questions are about the truth, doctor. Let's not make a mockery of this proceeding. This is about science and evidence, and I'm asking you. The United States Supreme Court just heard arguments yesterday at great length on this question. This is not a hypothetical question. This is not theoretical. It affects real people in their real lives. And you're here as an expert, called by the other side as an expert. And you've been telling us that you follow, right, you're a doctor, and you follow the science and the evidence. So I just want to know, based on the science, can men get pregnant? That's a yes or no question. It really is, I think.
I think you're trying to reduce the complexity of a lot.
I'm not. I'm trying to get, it's not complex. I'm trying to get to an answer, and I'm trying to test, frankly, your veracity as a medical professional and as a scientist. Can men get pregnant?
I think you're also conflating male with...
No, I'm not conflating male and female. They're two different things. There's biological men and there's biological women. And I want to know, can men get pregnant?
What you were talking about is biological...
You're not going to answer my question.
Biological males.
This isn't hard, doctor. Can men get pregnant? Yes or no?
I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you that is not coming from a place of trying to be polarized and push.
I'm not trying to be polarizing. I'm trying to ask, I think it is extraordinary that we are here in a hearing about science and about women. And for the record, it's women who get pregnant, not men. We are here about the safety of women and science that shows that this abortion drug causes adverse health events in 11% of cases. That's 22 times greater than the FDA label, another fact you haven't acknowledged, and yet you won't even acknowledge the basic reality that biological men don't get pregnant. There's a difference between biological men and biological women. I don't know how we can take you seriously and your claims to be a person of science if you won't level with this on this basic issue. I thought we were past all of this, frankly. I can't believe we're still here talking about this.
Okay, what you're looking at here, again, empirical, the language of empiricism. What is it? What is true? I've written about this on a couple of occasions when we're talking about the difference with sort of like I titled the essay "Believers versus the Red Pill versus Believers," right? Whatever. Believers versus empiricists, I think is what the title of it was. You'll find that in my fourth book in religion. The reason why they're talking past each other is because in this case, in this instance, Dr. Verma, because she believes in emotionalism, egalitarianism, the stuff, the reason why she can't like come to terms with the biological reality of men and women. The reason why she can't do that is because it's her religion. It's her belief. It's her belief that men can get pregnant. It's her belief that identity is something that's subjective rather than something that is objective, that is downstream from biology. Because once she admits that, she has to reconsider her own fucking personality because her ego and her identity is invested in the idea or in the concept, in the belief, the false fallacy belief that men can get pregnant. That men and women are just the same. It doesn't matter what we call ourselves as identity is identity. No, can't. And he even gives her a little bit of he gives her an out. Biological women, biological men, right? He could have just said, if he just said men and women, then it's like, well, what's a man? What's a woman? Let's go back to Matt Walsh and ask what's a woman, right? The reason why you will never get that objective definition from a believer like Dr. Verma is because the goal of the conversation, the goal of the debate, the goal of the argument is not the same for each person. That woman, her goal is to what feels right. What's right, what's wrong. That's what it is. It's a moral imperative. And she's probably not a Christian. Well, I don't care about your Christian morality or any of that other shit right here. I'm just saying that from her moral framework, it is wrong for her to admit that men couldn't get pregnant, right? That identity is something that, well, if they feel this way, if men feel this way, if men feel they could get pregnant, then they can, which is just pandering to neurosis from an empirical standpoint. So she's speaking the language of emotionalism, and Senator Hawley is speaking the language of empiricism. That's why they talk past one another, because as he said, the goal of the conversation, the goal of the question, the goal of the inquiry, whatever the debate is, the goal to him, to empirical inquiry, is the truth. What is true? Not whether it's right or wrong, not whether it should or shouldn't be, no practices. It's devoid of any moral implications. What's true? What's not? Once you establish that, then you can decide what's best practice and what's moral and everything else. But you can't even get to that unless you establish what the fuck is true. That's why he was saying, is it true that men can or cannot get pregnant? That's what he was going for. That doesn't even enter the conversation. That doesn't even enter her thoughts. And the reason why she's offended by it, you'll see, sometimes women will get really overworked. Like if you saw the Matt Walsh videos where he was talking about, what's a man, what is a woman, right? Women will lose their shit. They'll storm off the stage. They'll Frank Castle themselves, off of the interview, because they go into a kernel panic, man. They the progression wheel just keeps going around and around. They don't know what to, they don't know. The ellipsis keeps going across, right? Because they can't process that, because they lack the language, they lack the concept of that. That's because they live in their own solipsistic world of The female experience is the true experience. No one has probably ever confronted her on that. Certainly not in a public forum like this. No one has probably confronted her this way, and she just can't keep coming back to it. I'll let this finish. It's too good not to.
I am a person of science, and I'm also someone here who's here to represent the complex experiences of my patients, and I don't think polarized language or questions serve that goal. I don't think they serve the American people.
It is not polarizing to say that there is a scientific difference between men and women, and I want this to be clear and for the record. It is not polarizing to say that women are a biological reality and should be treated and protected as such. That is not polarizing, that is truth. It is also, by the way, the United States Constitution, which offers unique protections to women in a variety of circumstances as women. And your refusal to recognize women as women and men as men is deeply corrosive to science, to public trust, and yes, to constitutional protections for women as women. And I think it's extraordinary that you would sit here and advance a political agenda that has been thoroughly discredited and rejected by the American people in this forum. And I'm glad we had this exchange because it is exceptionally clarifying. It is also in many ways quite depressing. I see that my time has nearly expired. I just want to thank the other witnesses for being here. Thank you for protecting women and children. Thank you.
There you go. All right, so Senator Hawley, go vote for him if he's your senator. I don't know if he's not mine, but I would vote for that dude. Now imagine this. Imagine Senator Hawley or someone like him is a part of British Parliament and sits there and says, no, you're fucking wrong. No, like men who would actually challenge this female-specific, gynocentric, correct narrative. Female correct narrative. Everything women say is correct. Anything that men say that goes counter to that is misogyny. That's the you want polarization? There's your polarization. You want to know why the divide between women's political radicalization and men's, more or less steady, up and down, sticking to conservative, ideas, is because conservatism tends to be based on empiricism. On what are the results? What are the numbers? What are what's hierarchical, thinking, rationalism versus emotionalism. It's much easier to radicalize women than it is to radicalize men. And that's the thing. The problem, that's why they have to make up this cock and bull, narrative about the red pill, radicalizing young men. Why? Well, because they're worried that there's going to be some sort of obstacle to them becoming more like women. They're worried that they might not be able to condition the next generation of men into going along with the feminine, or excuse me, the feminine imperative, the gynocentric social order. That's what worries them. So much so that they got 20 million British pounds to basically brainwash their young no girls, only boys, so that they don't turn into Andrew Tate, because they're so worried about that. They think the radicalization is for men. That's another reason why when I see like Scott Galloway talking shit about lonely men, fuck you, Scott. It's the radicalized women that you need to be focusing on right now, because it's definitely not the guys. When you look at the polarization in ideology, when you look at the psychology, the evolved psyche of women, why is it easier to radicalize women than it is to radicalize men? You're worried that lonely guys are going to isolate and then get radicalized by me or Andrew Tate or Myron or whoever, God knows whoever else, because you won't name a fucking name. You're worried about that. But then you can go and see a graph where we can see, especially in South Korea, like it's astronomical. It's worldwide. It's not just here in the United States. It's everywhere. Why is that, Scott Galloway? And why are we focusing on shitting on guys when we should be looking at the radicalization of leftist progressivist women? Well, he's never going to say that because he himself is a radical leftist woman himself. He agrees with a lot of their same ideological bullshit. That's why he's basically he's a tool of gynocentrism. So is he going to? What's his purpose? The purpose of that tool is to make you think that it's really about we're worried that men are going to get radicalized. Bullshit.